with up to 26 species of cycadus known today. This was because there was an abundance of shelled and non-shelled mollusks at the time. The seas were teeming with them. With such an abundant food supply, cycadus thrived and could be found in nearly every ocean and sea of the late Cretaceous period. But if you came across a different shark inhabiting the waters of the Western Interior Seaway, then you'd have a good reason to be nervous. Squalicorax. After all, this was one of the sharks that sometimes terrorized even medium-sized mosasaurs. Squalicorax belonged to a genus of extinct Cretaceous sharks from the entirely extinct family Anacharossidae. It was a truly fierce predator, though it didn't shy away from scavenging either. Its teeth were pointed and serrated, which helped it to grab and hold on to prey. The body was hydrodynamic, allowing it to move quickly and efficiently through the water. It's also believed that Squalicorax had skin covered in scales or armor, providing protection and reducing hydrodynamic resistance while swimming. It was less impressive in size compared to the previously mentioned cycadus. Typically, Squalicorax grew up to 16 feet in length. When food was scarce, these sharks frequently visited coastal areas, risking danger to enter the domain of the Deinosuchus. By the coast, they could typically feed on the remains of dinosaurs. Additionally, Squalicorax was one of the few underwater creatures capable of hunting pteranodons, the massive flying reptiles with a wingspan of up to 23 feet. This suggests that Squalicorax had excellent vision, allowing it to track the bird as it prepared to dive into the water for fish. And while mosasaur somewhat resembles the monitor lizard that we're familiar with, Deinosuchus is essentially a giant crocodile. And Squalicorax bears a striking resemblance to our modern-day great white shark, the creature we're about to introduce that inhabited the waters of the Western Interior Seaway was truly unique and extraordinarily terrifying. Plesiosaurs, an order of extinct reptiles that lived from the Triassic to the Cretaceous period, were some of the animals with the longest neck to have ever existed. The most iconic members of this order include Hydrotherosaurus, which reached an average size for plesiosaurs, about 25 to 26 feet in length and weighing 2,400 pounds. Another was Moesaurus, which exceeded 26 feet in length. And finally, the largest representative of the plesiosaurs, Elasmosaurus, whose neck alone measured 23 feet, with the entire reptile stretching up to 34 feet. And yes, if this monster seems familiar to you, it's no surprise, as it became the primary inspiration for the myths and legends surrounding the Loch Ness Monster. The long neck rising out of the water, with a massive body lurking beneath. That's exactly what the Loch Ness Monster was, 80 million years ago, in the form of Elasmosaurus. The primary source of calories for these creatures were fish and marine invertebrates, such as squid. With bodies exceeding 30 feet in length, they weighed at least 17,600 pounds. Their bodies were compact and streamlined, with paddle-like limbs, a short tail, and a proportionally small head. One might assume they were quite dynamic creatures, but this wasn't the case. With a narrow neck and a small mouth, these reptiles could only feast on smaller inhabitants of the Western Interior Seaway. They skillfully used their abnormally long necks for strategic deception. Moving slowly, the plesiosaurs would first approach fish with their head, while their massive body, remaining at least 20 feet behind, stayed hidden. The fish might not detect the danger or mistake the reptile's head for another fish, only to end up in the stomach of the trickster. The terrifying appearance of this reptile didn't quite match its temperament or lifestyle, which cannot be said about our next creature, whose appearance can easily trigger thalassophobia. This monster is likely the last thing you'd want to encounter while diving. Xiphactinus. This is a giant ray-finned fish from the extinct order Ichthyodectiformes. and it would be the perfect candidate for the lead role in a horror movie about underwater creatures. Next to it, a great white shark, which seemed like a friendly companion. Xiphactinus is often described as a ferocious predator. Glutton would also be an apt description. It ate anything it could sink its teeth into, including smaller fish, turtles, pterosaurs, and even young mosasaurs. It's likely that it didn't shy away from scavenging whenever the opportunity arose. Xiphactinus was one of the largest bony fish to have ever lived on our planet, reaching lengths between 13 and 20 feet. These monsters were so aggressive and gluttonous that at times they didn't know when to stop. Several Xiphactinus skeletons have been found with undigested prey in their stomachs. The most astonishing find is a 13-foot-long specimen with a fully intact 6.5-foot fish, Gillicus arcuatus, inside. It's very likely that the Xiphactinus died shortly after swallowing such large prey. Its body was long and slender, like a torpedo, which likely allowed it to reach incredibly high speeds when chasing prey. Some estimates suggest its top speed was close to 37 miles per hour. Given its shape, many also suspect that Xiphactinus was able to leap out of the water like modern dolphins, and perhaps even hunted pterosaurs near the surface. The overall appearance of this fish was similar to modern megalops, but with a strikingly powerful, almost bulldog-like lower jaw. For this reason, Xiphactinus earned the nickname bulldog fish. The mouth of these fish was lined with sharp, spike-like teeth. The fins were narrow and long, with the pectoral fins armed with an enamel-covered spine along the front edge, which could reach up to 1 meter in length. In short, it was a universal killing machine that struck fear into many underwater inhabitants. As you may have already noticed, giganticism was a pervasive trend in the waters of the Western Interior Seaway. Almost every creature was enormous, from turtles the size of SUVs to ammonites that might shock you when you learn their size. Ammonites were a subclass of extinct cephalopod mollusks, most of which had an external shell coiled in a spiral. These animals were predators that inhabited the water column. They were incredibly widespread, with science identifying around 40,000 species. The largest known ammonite is Parapusosia. Just imagine a shell diameter of up to 11.5 feet and a weight of about 3,300 pounds, with the shell alone weighing 1,500 pounds. If you uncoiled it, you'd have a 32-foot-long tunnel. No wonder it earned the title of the heaviest invertebrate of all time. This deep-sea creature moved like all ammonites, by filling its uninhabited shell chambers with either water or gas using the principle of jet propulsion. Like all ammonites, this titan had a beak and long tentacles, which it used to hunt. It's possible that the shells of Parapusosia became encrusted with marine organisms, similar to the hulls of ships or whale carcasses, growing an entire ecosystem around it. While smaller ammonites faced significant threats from large predators like Mosasaurus, which could easily puncture their shells, Parapusosia likely had few natural enemies. The shell was not easy to break, and its inhabitant was no pushover, ready to bite back. These giants lived throughout the Western Interior Seaway, making these waters even more foreboding and dangerous. It's hard to imagine that a relatively small sea, 600 miles wide and 2,000 miles long, could hold such an abundance of giant super predators, literal monsters who had to constantly compete for their survival. It seems that the Western Interior Seaway became an insane experiment for evolution, where it dared to test its full force and apply all of its ingenuity in creating the most terrifying and deadly creatures our Earth has ever seen. And it was undoubtedly a success. Comment below what surprised you the most in this video. Or maybe you know of other prehistoric monsters that are even more mind-blowing. We'd love to read about them in the comments. That's all for now. Thank you for joining us on this distant journey. And if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any more. Give us a thumbs up and thank you for watching.